Welcome to the 60th reading of my memoir, The Innocence of Guilt. Life in Cherry Court, and I get engaged. The night President Kennedy was shot, in November 1963, I sat in the common room of Cherry Court all by myself, watching television on which I witnessed the unbelievable assassination of a much-loved leader. Sometimes the loneliness gnawed away at me, and I'd phone Brian, knowing another student would answer the communal payphone and have to locate him, knowing they'd disturb him hard at his books, knowing he'd have to leave the comfort of his room and make his way down the stairs to the hallway, knowing his one thought would be to get back to his studying. He was diligent, focused, and single-minded, but once in a while I broke through his fortress of dedication, simply to survive. The girls at Cherry Court loved Brian. He'd never been a girl chaser, but they certainly fixed their eyes on him. I complained one time to one of them that I wished he would take me out more. She looked at me with an air of expectation as she remarked, "If you don't want him any more, I'll have him." That stopped me complaining, especially as Brian was quite chuffed when I told him, adding that the girl in question was quite attractive. I tried so many things in order to fill my spare time, but nothing seemed to work for long. One afternoon I used the hostel's sewing machine. I designed and sewed a frock for myself without the aid of a pattern. This sudden venture into creativity earned me the label of genius fashion designer, and the girls waited for my next display of wizardry, but they were disappointed. I retreated once more into worry mode and wasted hours doing nothing. The library has some worthwhile books, so I entered into a period of seclusion, curled up in a corner of the common room night after night, telling myself I didn't need the social interaction the other girls enjoyed. I could live through the lives of the characters found in novels. After a while, I knew I lied to myself and put the books back on the shelves. Maybe I needed to pursue the stage as the answer to my purposeless life. Music still called out to me, and the performance aspect more so because then I would be noticed. 1964 was the year of the Beatles, ever since they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show in February. The girls around me were wild over them. I liked their music and would buy some of their later records, but I didn't have a crush on any of them, not even Paul, the favourite, with John a close second. I still liked the folk artists Joan Baez and Bob Dylan. When a new girl moved into the room next door to me, I soon heard the sounds of singing accompanied by guitar coming through the thin walls. I knocked on the door and introduced myself. Ginny hailed from Wales, a land of wonderful singers. She possessed one of those wonderful voices, along with the ability to accompany herself on the guitar. What a unique combination! What I would give to be able to do that. Inspired by Ginny, I went with Jean, my best friend in Baby's bungalow, to a music shop in town where we both purchased acoustic guitars. I needed some support if I was ever going to become a folk singer like Joan Baez, only 1 year older than me but already famous. A little hint that if I hadn't already worked on my music by now, I probably never would, but I was already up there in the clouds, eager to disprove that theory. Jean was an easygoing, uncomplicated individual, with brown hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a ready smile. I'm not sure why she found me such good company. I didn't get very far with my music. For one thing, I never learnt how to tune my guitar. My claim to fame? Travelling home on my infrequent visits, guitar slung over my shoulder, looking for all the world like an accomplished musician. Once home, I took it out of its fancy case and tried to wow my brother with a few chords and a rendering of Bob Dylan's Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. My playing never impressed David, but he did tune the guitar for me, which helped a little, but not much. Jean didn't get anywhere with her playing either, because I'd talked her into something she had no desire to do. I had more success with Jean and the babies. When it came to our turn, along with a few other nurses, to take the babies to the park, we'd get them all cleaned up and put into the prams. Usually 2 babies to a pram, safely secured in with the standard clipper-safe harnesses. Sometimes Jean and I took our special babies out when we were off duty because we didn't want another nurse to do it. As we weren't in our uniforms, we hoped people would think the babies ours, but the prams gave us away. Large, cumbersome, and quite ancient, Baby's bungalow possessed an entire fleet of them. Every Friday we cleaned and polished them until they shone. Nurse May walked up and down the 2 rows of prams, inspecting them as thoroughly as a sergeant major on the parade ground. One little smudge, and we'd have to do them all over again. Brian finished his Bachelor of Science degree in June and graduated with first-class honours in geology and physics. All his hard work paid off, and he was elated. Not the end of his studying, however. He decided to go to the Imperial College of Science and Technology, situated in South Kensington, and study for his master's, at the same time obtaining the diploma of Imperial College. Another year of study, so he decided to hold off the graduation ceremony until the following year. He took a summer job at the Dagenham Ford Motor Company in London, working in the copy centre putting car manuals together. As it took him an hour and a half on the tube to get to Barkingside, he only saw me on Sundays. During the week we phoned each other, and the rest of the time I was back to sitting by the window of Cherry Court, watching the girls go out on dates in the pleasant summer evenings. We walked around the paths in the village home one Sunday in July, when Brian stopped and turned me to face him. "How would you like to wake up every morning and see my face on the pillow beside you?" he calmly asked. His long-awaited proposal. I said I would love to. We would shop for an engagement ring in August. From now on, everything would be perfect. We chose the single solitaire diamond ring in a shop in Hatton Garden, central London's famous jewellery quarter. I wore it straight away, as it fitted me perfectly. Brian borrowed the money from me for the ring and said he would pay me back one day when he earned lots of money. I laughed and said that once married, what was his would be mine, and vice versa. We both wrote home to announce our engagement. My parents had anticipated it, so they didn't sound particularly excited. But Brian received quite a negative reaction from his. They wrote back most upset we had gone ahead without telling them first. No congratulations. It put a dampener on our special occasion. They had mentioned to Brian a while back that they wished their son had picked a university girl, but still. We went home for a weekend, hoping our physical presence would soften the blow, so to speak. The distinct impression I picked up from his parents' attitude towards me was that now I had a ring on my finger, I'd captured their son. No way he could escape my clutches now. My parents both thought a lot of Brian and welcomed him into the family a long time ago. What upset me, though, was Mum's lack of emotion over my ring. I asked to see her engagement ring so as to compare it with mine. Reluctantly, she went upstairs to look for it, claiming she didn't wear it anymore, but came down with the solitaire diamond ring in her hand. I remarked on our identical tastes in rings, hoping to open up a conversation around the subject of engagements, but it didn't happen. A complete reluctance on Mum's part to reminisce with me over what must surely have been a happy time in her life. Soon after our engagement, we took a couple of weeks' holiday in Torquay. Lots of walking, Brian's passion, amongst green hills with spectacular views of the sea, boat trips and beach time, a relaxing holiday. I thought constantly of little Darryl. He alone made going back to work bearable. I clung on to him for emotional sustenance. I had mistakenly believed an engagement ring would dispel all the bad thoughts bothering my mind, but my brain refused to embrace pleasant reality as I grappled constantly with desperate feelings of doom. At work, I hid away in the bathroom, secretly engaged in the repetitive rituals that gave me temporary relief. Jean would miss me and bang on the door to ask if I was all right. Nobody knew I suffered terrible condemnation at those times, a sentence of utter despair my mind brought into being. On rainy days, I volunteered to haul the laundry outside to the hut at the end of the garden, which had a heater for drying the baby's clothes, so I could escape from social interaction. I stayed there, absorbed in the rituals, until somebody came to find me. My only hope for some prolonged relief was an attempt to fall asleep on my 2-hour break in the afternoon, but throbbing headaches brought on by the tension of the obsessive, repetitive thoughts rarely allowed such bliss. Drenched in perspiration from the struggle to free myself from them, I'd take a bath before returning to work. I imagined the water washing away the stink and shame of my fears. Emerging from the bath, fresh and clean, I vowed never to give in to them again, but the first time a bad thought made its way into my mind, I'd be back in the nursery bathroom, repeating sentences over and over to make the dread disappear. I worried about everything. Spent days focusing on one problem, and when it wore itself out, set myself up for the next one. An insatiable monster lived in my brain, demanding a diet of useless worries. I frequently took myself off to the doctor with stomach aches, backaches, and headaches. He checked me over and found nothing unusual. Declared me fit and well because I never told him my real trouble. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe, like, or comment on this reading, and hopefully you will tune in to the next one. Bye for now.